Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. As always, thanks for stopping by. Today we are going to continue our lesson series based in snare technique and tenor and bass technique and all that good stuff, which we will get to, I promise. But right now I want to get all of these basics out of the way first before we get into that. So the last time that we were together, we talked about the mechanics of the right and left hand and exactly how they worked to give us that stroke that we were looking for when it comes to rudimental drumming, more along the style of Blue Devils and Blue Coats. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this yet, but when I developed my own technique, I really enjoyed the Blue Devils technique and the Blue Coats technique, so my technique is kind of a meld between those two. When you're learning this technique, it's going to be something in between those two techniques. So as I was saying, last time we learned the mechanics. Today we're going to start to kind of build 8 on a hand. I do want to go ahead and try and talk about the full stroke and hopefully the downstroke as well, because those are the two strokes that we use when it comes to 8 on a hand. There's a lot more than people really give the exercise credit for when learning 8 on a hand. There's a lot of little things that you should be aware of when you're playing it. So we're gonna, now that we kind of know what the mechanics are, what the frame is, all that kind of good stuff, we're gonna be able to talk about the 8 on a hand exercise and how to build up to it. So before we go on, I'd like to invite you guys, if you guys aren't exactly sure what it is that we're talking about, go ahead and go to the beginning of this series. I go from how to hold the stick, both right and left hand snare grip, and all the way through frame, all the way through mechanics of the stroke as well. So if you want to go back and start there at the beginning, I highly encourage you to go ahead and do that. But if you've been watching since the beginning, then we can go ahead and go to the next step. So the next step is I'm going to give you guys kind of like a precision exercise into building up to 8 on a hand. Precision is really important when it comes to rudimental drumming, because the more precise you are, the more you're playing correct rhythms, perfectly correct rhythms, the cleaner you're going to be in your drum line. So I highly encourage you, if you're a center snare or anything, or when you do become a center snare, something like that, that's something that you preach, perfect rhythms, because if everybody's thinking mathematically split, you know, the rhythms and things of that nature, then it's going to be a lot easier to clean your line later on down the line. So enough with that. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you how to build this right hand stroke and then build the left hand stroke while working on precision and building up 8 on a hand. I'm not going to spend any time talking about the mechanics in this video. I'm just going to go straight into the precision aspect of the stroke and how to build that 8 on a hand. So I always like to start with a click. Right now I'm at 90 beats per minute, and this is how I typically build the stroke. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is play on every downbeat in a 4/4 measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to play the stroke, okay, on every downbeat. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I want you to start up here, okay? I don't want you to start down below. Just want you to start up here, and I want you to really think about what your hand is doing. You're thinking about all the mechanic aspects that we were talking about in the previous video, okay? So is my bead going back to my elbow, and is my wrist doing most of the work? It should be, and with a little bit of arm, right? So really just kind of watch yourself and then check, okay, is everything, kind of get used to this. A lot of this is muscle memory, okay? Muscle memory going through each stroke, okay? So that's how you start off on the first beat. And also what you should be aiming for is hitting right on the downbeat of the stroke. So you're kind of multitasking here. You're training yourself to do several different things. Check it out. Train yourself to hit right on the metronome, right on the click. So that's going to train you to do several different things at once. One, it's going to train your muscles to do the same thing over and over again, which is really important, because when you're playing, you can't have your muscles doing different things, because that's where you get different tone qualities. So that's step number 1. Step number 2, once you get comfortable with the downstrokes, every downstroke, then you're going to go into half notes. Okay, so here you are 1 on 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you stay nice and up. Okay, so I'm comfortable there now. I'm going to move to half notes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Still thinking about these things. It's a little bit faster, so your brain has less time to think about what it's doing mechanically. So you kind of have to force it to think faster. You kind of have to get used to what's happening with your hands, with your muscles, okay? So take some time here. Really, once you feel like it's all right, I know what I'm doing, this feels good. Once you've done that, then you go down to quarter notes. So 1, 2, ready, and go back to that same spot every time, every quarter note. See that? The stick should hang out up here every time. See that? This is a very slow 8 on a hand, okay? It's a 90 beat per minute 8 on a hand, or rather, you're playing 8 on a hand if you're playing in eighth notes at 45 beats per minute. But that's important, okay? That's important to get your muscles doing the correct things every single stroke. That way you get the same tone quality every single stroke. So do that with the right hand and do that with the left hand as well, okay? Go back to the mechanics we were talking about in the previous video and apply that to the left hand and really think about the precision and think about making sure that every time you play you're doing the same thing mechanics wise, okay? So once you've done it at 90 beats per minute and you feel comfortable with that, then you can bump it up to 100 beats per minute, then 110, then 111, whatever. So if you're at 120, for example, okay, start on ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then half notes. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, then quarters. Now that's still a very slow 8 on a hand, but it's a lot better than 90 beats per minute. See that? Now you're getting a little bit more natural stroke going in that right hand. And then of course, once you get to something like maybe 160, okay, you got it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now that's a slow 8 on a hand right there. That's an actual slow 8 on a hand, maybe something you would start off with early in the morning when it's freaking cold outside, right? Okay, and that's how you get your 8 on a hand. Cool? So that, if you guys weren't sure, that is the full stroke, okay? That is what we call the full stroke, and a full stroke is a bounce stroke, one that starts at one point and ends up at that same point. At least that's the way I kind of define a full stroke. It starts up and ends up, which is the easy way to remember what a full stroke is. That's one of the strokes that you need when you're playing 8 on a hand. The other stroke is called the downstroke, or some people I know call it the stop stroke. Universally, it's pretty much known as the downstroke. Okay, so the first stroke that we talked about was the full stroke, and then it starts up and ends up. It's a bounce stroke. This next one starts up and ends down. That's kind of my definition of it. So starts up, ends down. And why do we need a downstroke? Like, what's the point of that? Well, the point of having a full stroke is if you're having big open passages where you have to play nice and big. To be completely honest, you don't use the full stroke in its essence all that much. You will use it when it comes to double beat and things of that nature, but we'll get into that later. You use the downstroke a lot more because of how many high to low passages you have when you're playing on any drum line, really. So you're going to use this downstroke a lot more than the full stroke. So let's talk about that real quick. Okay, so we're a little bit of a weird angle here, but I really want you to be able to see what I'm talking about when it comes to the downstroke. It's important to note that the full stroke has certain mechanics. The only difference between a full stroke and a downstroke is the fact that it doesn't bounce back up after you play. A full stroke bounces up, a downstroke does not. That's the only difference between a full stroke and the downstroke. Nothing else changes. Everything from here to here stays the same between a full stroke and a downstroke. When you're playing a full stroke, it's really important to kind of get your hand out of the way when you're playing it, because it's really easy to just kind of keep your hand down. So you have to move the wrist out of the way when you play that full stroke. I know I didn't mention that before, but you kind of have to give the stick a chance to get out of the way. You got to kind of help pull this wrist back on that full stroke. With a downstroke, it's kind of a little bit easier because you just kind of let your stick stay down. Okay, you just don't break that wrist back up. The full stroke is a lot of bounce, lets it come up, right? Okay, full stroke, full stroke, full stroke. You got to kind of help it come back up. The downstroke is you just don't move that wrist after all. So you kind of have to close your fingers a little bit when you play this downstroke. Okay, so you kind of come down here and then just close your hand. Don't squeeze. Don't go like that when you play the downstroke, because you're going to get an unnecessary dead tone in the stick. Instead, you want to have a very full tone from the stick. So all you're doing is kind of just cradling the stick when you come down. You're just not letting your fingers open when you come down. Okay, that's all it is when you play the downstroke. And right now, if you see, I'm getting a lot of bounce, okay, from the full stroke. That's okay. Practice it, closing your fingers a little bit more until you can get that dead stop. You can use a metronome the same way that we used it for the full stroke exercise to kind of work on that downstroke. So you would kind of do it as a down, 2, 3, 4, down, 2, up, 2, down, 2, up, 2. Just kind of, work on your precision a little bit and also work on that downstroke. You see that? You see how I'm using the same mechanics as a full stroke? The wrist comes back, the bead goes to my elbow, okay? It's the same mechanics. Everything is the same except that the stick doesn't bounce back, and I'm not squeezing the stick at all. Just keeping my fingers right here close to the stick. Make sure that it doesn't come back up. See that? And those are pretty much the 2 strokes that you need in order to start the 8 on a hand exercise. Okay, just work on that for now. Okay, there's a lot more to the 8 on a hand exercise than just that, obviously, and in the next video I promise to break down 8 on a hand, like literally break it down. But once we get into that video, I don't need to talk about mechanics. I don't need to talk about how to play the full stroke. I don't need to talk about how to play the downstroke. You already know. So I could just tell you what the transition looks like, how to play them correctly, how many full strokes, how many downstrokes, where each downstroke is in the exercise, so that you can go ahead and play it correctly and cleanly right away. As always, thanks so much for stopping by. I'm glad you can make it. If you have any questions at all about what you're seeing in the video or anything like that, don't be afraid to drop a comment down below asking me, and I will try and get back to you and answer as best I can in the comment section, or if it's a really popular issue, I'll go ahead and address it in the next video for you. So things are starting to heat up a little bit. It's starting to get a little bit more exciting. We're playing more relevant things than just talking theory and things of that nature. So again, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time. See you.